Hamilton is in a tricky position as Ferrari's 2026 car could have issues. Oscar reveals pace deficit as he plans on making a huge comeback, and all the latest F1 news. What happens when a 7-time world champion joins Ferrari and gets absolutely demolished by his teammate? Well, we're about to dive into one of the most shocking Formula One stories of recent times. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why experts are questioning everything we thought we knew about Lewis Hamilton. Picture this. It's 2025 and Lewis Hamilton finally makes his dream move to Ferrari. The racing world holds its breath. This is supposed to be the moment where the most successful driver in F1 history brings Ferrari back to championship glory. Instead, what we're witnessing is nothing short of a masterclass in how quickly reputations can crumble in the world's most competitive sport. Right now, with just 3 races left in the season, Hamilton trails his Ferrari teammate Charles Leclerc by a staggering 66 points in the championship standings. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about points on a board. Former F1 racer turned analyst David Valsecchi recently dropped a bombshell that has the entire paddock talking. He didn't mince words when he said that Leclerc has completely destroyed Hamilton this season, both in qualifying and during races. Think about that for a moment. We're talking about Lewis Hamilton, the driver who dominated Formula One for over a decade, being outclassed by a teammate who many considered talented but inconsistent. Valsecchi went even further, stating that Leclerc is now the only rock-solid element of the entire Ferrari project. That's a brutal assessment when you consider Hamilton was supposed to be the missing piece of Ferrari's championship puzzle. The numbers tell a story that's impossible to ignore. While Leclerc has stepped onto the podium 7 times this season, Hamilton has managed 0 podium finishes in his first year wearing Ferrari red. 0. Let that sink in for a moment. This is a driver who was regularly fighting for wins and championships at Mercedes, and now he can't even find his way to the top 3 in a single race. But wait, because this story gets even more dramatic. Ferrari entered the 2025 season with genuine championship ambitions. They were coming off a heartbreaking loss to McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, decided at the final race in Abu Dhabi just months earlier. The expectations were sky high. Ferrari fans around the world believed this would finally be their year, especially with Hamilton joining the team. Instead, Ferrari hasn't won a single Grand Prix this season. Not one. Meanwhile, McLaren has absolutely dominated, securing back-to-back constructors' titles, and Lando Norris is now leading the Drivers' Championship by 24 points over his teammate Oscar Piastri, with Max Verstappen trailing by 49 points in 3rd place. The disappointment at Ferrari became so intense that midway through the season, Italian media was speculating about team principal Fred Vasseur losing his job. The pressure was that immense. Ferrari management eventually silenced those rumors by giving Vasseur a new multi-year contract, but the damage to confidence was already done. Here's where Valsecchi's analysis becomes truly concerning for Hamilton supporters. When asked about Ferrari's prospects for 2026, when massive regulation changes will reset the entire sport, Valsecchi admitted he wouldn't bet significant money on Ferrari producing the fastest car. His reasoning is particularly damning. He pointed out that Ferrari has appeared unstable throughout the season, wanting to fire Vasseur at one point, then extending his contract, then making numerous personnel changes. According to Valsecchi, when regulations change dramatically, the most stable teams typically have the best chance of adapting successfully. Right now, Ferrari doesn't look like that stable team. The internal turbulence has been visible from the outside, and that's never a good sign when you're trying to develop a completely new car concept. But here's the part that should really worry Hamilton fans. Valsecchi believes that even if Ferrari does produce a championship-winning car in 2026, Leclerc would be the driver best positioned to take advantage of it. His reasoning touches on something that's become increasingly apparent this season: age and adaptability. Hamilton is now 40 years old, and Valsecchi points out that he already struggled to adapt to Ferrari's car philosophy this season. With completely new regulations coming in 2026, featuring smaller cars that are 30 kilograms lighter, active aerodynamics on both wings, and engines with triple the current electrical power output running on fully sustainable biofuel, adaptation will be crucial. The analyst suggests that younger drivers will have a natural advantage when these new regulations arrive. Hamilton has already shown difficulty adjusting to one new car. How will he handle an entirely new technical formula at age 41? It's a legitimate question that Ferrari management must be asking themselves behind closed doors. Let's talk about Hamilton's track record with teammates, because this adds another layer to the story. During his final 3 years at Mercedes, Hamilton was paired with George Russell. In 2 of those 3 seasons, Russell came out ahead in their head-to-head comparison. That's significant because it suggests Hamilton's struggles aren't entirely about adjusting to Ferrari's specific car characteristics. The pattern is becoming clear. Hamilton moves to Ferrari at an older age and immediately gets dominated by Leclerc across an entire season. If this was just a few races, you could chalk it up to adaptation issues. But we're talking about a full season where Hamilton hasn't managed to consistently match his younger teammates' pace. Valsecchi's assessment becomes even more pointed when discussing Ferrari's long-term planning. Hamilton is under contract until at least the end of 2026, meaning Ferrari has committed to building their championship ambitions around a driver who will be in his early 40s. The analyst openly questions whether this makes sense, especially given Hamilton's current performance deficit. The situation became so tense that Ferrari president John Elkann recently delivered some tough love to both drivers after a disastrous double retirement in Brazil. Hamilton suffered floor damage after contact with Franco Colapinto's Alpine, while Leclerc was the innocent victim of a multi-car incident involving Oscar Piastri and Kimi Antonelli. Elkann's message was blunt: focus on driving and talk less. Both drivers responded with social media posts reaffirming their commitment to Ferrari, but the public criticism from the team president suggests internal frustration is reaching a boiling point. Hamilton posted about backing his team and never giving up, while Leclerc emphasized the need for unity in the remaining races. The broader context makes this situation even more fascinating. Formula One is entering a new era in 2026 with the most significant technical changes in years. The cars will be fundamentally different, with active aerodynamics replacing the current DRS system and dramatically more powerful hybrid systems. It's essentially a blank slate for all teams. Traditionally, these regulatory resets create opportunities for teams to leapfrog their competition. Ferrari has the resources and technical capability to build a championship-winning car. The question isn't whether they can create fast machinery, but whether they can create the right environment for success, and whether Hamilton can rediscover his championship form. The irony is striking. Hamilton joined Ferrari specifically to avoid becoming another champion who couldn't replicate his success with the famous Italian team. He's been working behind the scenes, reportedly submitting detailed technical documents to help improve the team's approach. Yet despite these efforts, he finds himself in exactly the position he was trying to avoid. Looking ahead to 2026, several factors will determine whether this partnership can be salvaged. First, Ferrari needs to produce a genuinely competitive car under the new regulations. Second, Hamilton must find a way to adapt his driving style to extract maximum performance from Ferrari's machinery. Third, the team needs to create a stable technical and strategic environment that allows both drivers to flourish. Valsecchi remains skeptical about all 3 elements coming together. He admits he hopes Ferrari can work some magic during the winter development period, but his confidence in their ability to lead Formula One's new era is clearly limited. The instability he's observed throughout 2025 doesn't inspire confidence for the massive challenges ahead. For Hamilton personally, 2026 represents perhaps his final realistic opportunity to claim that elusive 8th World Championship. At 41, time is not on his side, and his current struggles against Leclerc suggest the task will be even more difficult than anticipated. The most damning aspect of Valseca's analysis might be his suggestion that if Ferrari does build a championship-winning car, Leclerc would be the natural choice to maximize its potential. That's a devastating verdict on Hamilton's current trajectory and raises serious questions about Ferrari's decision-making process. As we head into the final races of 2025, the pressure on both Hamilton and Ferrari continues to mount. The dream partnership that was supposed to restore Ferrari to championship glory has instead become a cautionary tale about expectations, adaptation, and the unforgiving nature of Formula One. Whether Hamilton can turn this situation around remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: the racing world will be watching every move when the 2026 season begins, and the stakes couldn't be higher for everyone involved. What's going on, Formula One fans? Have you been following the absolute chaos that erupted after Max Verstappen's incredible drive from the pit lane to the podium in Brazil? Because let me tell you, this story has everything: dramatic engine swaps, financial allegations, and McLaren playing detective with Red Bull's budget. Buckle up, because we're diving deep into one of the most controversial moves of the season. Picture this: you're Max Verstappen sitting in your car at Interlagos, and your qualifying session just went completely sideways. Both you and your teammate Yuki Tsunoda are knocked out in the first qualifying session. Your championship hopes are hanging by a thread, and you're staring down what could be the end of your title defense. What do? Well, if you're Red Bull, you roll the dice in the most spectacular way possible. Red Bull made a decision that sent shockwaves through the paddock. They completely overhauled Verstappen's car setup and dropped in a brand new Honda power unit. Now here's the thing about Formula One regulations: when you make changes like this during what's called park firm, which is essentially a lockdown period between qualifying and the race, you get penalized. And boy, did they get penalized. Verstappen had to start from the pit lane, which is basically the worst possible starting position you can imagine. But here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't just about fixing a broken engine or dealing with reliability issues. This was a calculated gamble for pure performance. Red Bull team boss Laurent Mekies later admitted they were originally scheduled to finish the season without needing this engine change at all. They chose to make the swap because they felt it would give them a competitive advantage. And let me tell you, when you're talking about performance-based engine changes in Formula One, you're opening up a whole can of worms regarding the sport's financial regulations. Enter McLaren, stage left, with some very pointed questions. McLaren team principal Andrea Stella didn't waste any time expressing his concerns about this engine change. He essentially called out Red Bull, suggesting that if this engine swap was done for performance reasons rather than reliability, it should count against Red Bull's cost cap allowance. Now, this is where things get really spicy, because the cost cap system in Formula One is designed to level the playing field by limiting how much teams can spend during a season. The cost cap has been in place since 2021, and it's basically a maximum budget that teams cannot exceed. The idea is to prevent the wealthiest teams from simply buying their way to victory by outspending everyone else. But here's the complexity. There's apparently a distinction between engine changes made for performance reasons and those made for reliability reasons when it comes to what counts against this budget. Stella's comments were diplomatic but pointed. He said these kinds of power unit changes challenge the regulations, and he was very interested in understanding whether the cost of this engine would go into the cost cap or not. His position was crystal clear. If the engine was changed for performance reasons, It should absolutely count against Red Bull's budget limitations. Now, let's talk about what happened on race day, because this is where Verstappen reminded everyone why he's a three-time world champion. Starting from the pit lane, which is essentially starting from dead last, he carved through the field like a hot knife through butter. The man delivered what can only be described as a masterclass in racecraft, ultimately finishing third on the podium. It was a drive that kept his championship hopes alive, even though those hopes were admittedly getting pretty slim at that point. Red Bull's Laurent Mekies was asked directly about how much performance gain the new engine provided. His response was fascinating from a strategic standpoint. He said it was difficult to quantify exactly, but he emphasized that in Formula One's current competitive landscape, where gaps between teams are razor-thin, everything matters. Every tenth of a second, every small advantage can be the difference between victory and defeat. Mekies revealed that they originally planned to finish the season without needing this engine change, but they decided to take the opportunity mainly because they wanted to change the car setup as well. He admitted it was difficult to give a specific number for the performance gain, but stressed that with such small gaps in performance across the grid, everything becomes crucial. The context here is important. Red Bull had endured what Mekies called a nightmare qualifying session. Both drivers were eliminated early, and the team wasn't happy with where the car was in terms of balance and driver feedback after the sprint race. They had finished fourth in the sprint, but Mekies noted it was effectively fifth without some car stoppages during the race. Nobody on the team wanted to settle for that level of performance. So Red Bull played their only card, a complete setup change and a fresh power unit. They took a massive risk, and initially it backfired spectacularly when they got qualifying wrong. But as Mekies explained, this is how Red Bull approaches racing. They take risks because they believe if they don't take that level of risk, they won't be able to win. It's a high-stakes gamble that sometimes pays off and sometimes doesn't. The team had taken similar risks throughout the season, experiencing both highs and lows. Mekies mentioned their difficult race in Budapest as an example of when their risk-taking didn't work out. But this time in Brazil, after making the decision to change both the car setup and fit a new power unit, everything clicked. The car was alive, as Mekies put it, and probably good enough to fight for the victory. This brings us back to the McLaren controversy. The distinction between performance and reliability engine changes isn't just academic. It has real financial implications under the cost cap system. If Red Bull used this engine change primarily for performance reasons, as their own statements seem to suggest, then McLaren argues it should count against their budget allocation. The timing of this controversy is particularly significant because we're in the 2025 season, and every team is carefully managing their budgets under these cost cap regulations. McLaren, who completed both the sprint and Grand Prix victories at Interlagos through Lando Norris, now leads the championship standings. Norris is 24 points ahead of his teammate Oscar Piastri, and a commanding 49 points ahead of Verstappen, with only 3 Grands Prix and 1 sprint remaining. From McLaren's perspective, ensuring fair play under the cost cap is crucial for maintaining competitive integrity. If teams can circumvent the financial regulations by claiming performance upgrades are reliability-related, it undermines the entire system designed to create more equitable competition. The broader implications of this controversy extend beyond just Red Bull and McLaren. Every team in Formula One is watching how this situation unfolds, because it could set precedents for future engine change decisions. The sport's governing bodies will need to provide clarity on how such situations should be handled to maintain both competitive fairness and financial compliance. What makes Verstappen's Brazil performance even more remarkable is that he was denied second place only by impressive defensive driving from Mercedes rookie Kimi Antonelli, who scored his best Formula One result with a second-place finish. Mekies believes that without the qualifying disaster, Verstappen would have been fighting directly with Norris for the victory. The Red Bull boss praised Verstappen's sensational drive, comparing it to his victory the previous year when he won from 16th position in wet conditions. This time, bringing the car from the pit lane to third place in a dry, relatively uneventful race was equally impressive, demonstrating the Dutch driver's exceptional skill and the potential performance gained from their risky strategic decisions. As we look toward the remaining races of the season, this controversy over engine changes and cost cap compliance adds another layer of intrigue to an already dramatic championship battle. While Verstappen's title hopes may be slim, Red Bull's willingness to take bold risks keeps them dangerous competitors. The McLaren investigation into Red Bull's cost cap compliance will likely continue behind the scenes, potentially involving Formula One's governing body in determining whether this engine change violated financial regulations. The outcome could influence how teams approach similar strategic decisions in the future. What do you think about this controversy? Should performance-based engine changes count against the cost cap, or is McLaren just trying to gain a competitive advantage through regulatory challenges? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more Formula One analysis and breaking news. Until next time, keep those engines revving. What happens when a Formula One legend drops a bombshell about one of the sport's most shocking decisions? Sebastian Vettel just sent shockwaves through the paddock with his warning about Red Bull's decision to fire Christian Horner, and what he revealed could change everything we thought we knew about team management in Formula One. The four-time world champion didn't hold back when he was asked about his former team principal's sudden departure earlier this season. Red Bull made headlines when they surprisingly dismissed Horner during their early season struggles, a move that caught the entire Formula One community off guard. But according to Vettel, this decision might come back to haunt the energy drink giants in ways nobody anticipated. Let me paint you the picture of what actually happened here. Christian Horner wasn't just any team principal. He was the architect of Red Bull's entire Formula One operation, the man who built their championship-winning culture from the ground up. When Red Bull was struggling in the early part of the season, scoring only 172 points under Horner's leadership, the team made the dramatic decision to show him the door. On paper, this looked like a masterstroke. Laurent Mekies stepped in as Horner's replacement and immediately turned things around. Under Mekies, Red Bull scored an impressive 194 points in 3 fewer races than they had under Horner. The numbers don't lie. The team was performing better, and it seemed like Red Bull had made the right call at exactly the right time. But Vettel sees something that the statistics don't show. When Sky Sports asked him about his reaction to Horner's dismissal, the German driver's response was telling. He admitted he was surprised, not just because of the timing, but because of what Horner represented to the organization. This wasn't just about replacing an underperforming manager. It was about removing the heart and soul of the Red Bull operation. Think about it from Vettel's perspective. He worked with Horner during some of the most successful years in Red Bull's history. He watched this man build relationships, understand every intricate detail of how the team operated, and create the winning mentality that brought them multiple championships. When someone with that level of institutional knowledge suddenly disappears, there are bound to be consequences that don't show up in immediate race results. Vettel's warning becomes even more interesting when you consider his exact words. He pointed out that Christian had been there since the very beginning and knew the team inside and out. Everything was already in place for the current season when the change happened. But what about next season? What about the season after that? This is where Vettel's concerns become crystal clear. The four-time champion acknowledged that Laurent Mekies is a great person and someone he's worked with before. This isn't about questioning Mekies' abilities or suggesting he can't do the job. Instead, Vettel is highlighting something much more fundamental about how Formula One teams really work behind the scenes. In Formula One, success isn't just about having the fastest car or the best drivers. It's about having systems, relationships, and institutional knowledge that take years to build and seconds to destroy. Horner didn't just manage race weekends. He was the central figure who understood how every department connected, who knew which people to trust in crisis moments, and who had built the communication channels that made Red Bull's operation so effective. When Vettel says that Horner left big footsteps, he's not just talking about trophies and championship celebrations. He's talking about something much more valuable and much harder to replace. The informal networks, the trust relationships with drivers and engineers, the ability to make split-second decisions during races because you understand every aspect of your team's capabilities and limitations. Here's where things get really interesting. Vettel admits he's not completely aware of Red Bull's current organizational structure or their plans for the future. But that uncertainty is exactly his point. When you remove someone who was so central to everything, you create knowledge gaps that might not become apparent until critical moments when you need that institutional memory most. The timing of this warning is particularly significant. Red Bull is currently enjoying their best form of the season under Mekis, but Vettel is essentially saying that short-term success doesn't guarantee long-term stability. Formula One is a sport where tiny advantages compound over time, and losing institutional knowledge could create problems that won't surface until much later. What makes Vettel's perspective so valuable is his unique position in all of this. There was actually speculation that he might return to Red Bull himself after Horner's departure. The retired champion revealed that he did have some conversations with Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko, but those discussions never gained any real momentum. This gives Vettel's warning extra weight because he's not speaking as someone with a personal agenda. He's not trying to get back into the sport or settle old scores. He's simply offering his honest assessment as someone who understands both the team and the sport at the highest level. The conversation also revealed something fascinating about Vettel's current mindset. Initially, after retiring from active competition, he wasn't sure if he wanted to keep following Formula One. He thought he might need distance from the sport he dedicated his life to. But his passion for racing brought him back as a fan, and now he watches every race with genuine enthusiasm. This perspective makes his warning about Red Bull even more credible. He's not speaking as someone trying to return to the sport or someone with hurt feelings about past decisions. He's speaking as someone who genuinely loves Formula One and wants to see teams make smart long-term decisions. Vettel's final thoughts on a potential return to the sport are telling. He's happy with his current life situation but remains open to the right opportunity. The key phrase here is the right opportunity. He's not desperate to return, which means any analysis he provides comes from a place of genuine insight rather than personal motivation. So what does all this mean for Red Bull? Vettel's warning isn't about immediate doom and gloom. The team is performing well right now, and Mekis deserves credit for the turnaround. Instead, this is about recognizing that organizational changes have consequences that extend far beyond current race results. The real test will come during the next major crisis or strategic decision point. Will Red Bull have the institutional knowledge and relationship networks they need to navigate complex situations? Will they miss the kind of insights that only come from years of experience within the specific culture of their organization? Vettel's warning is essentially this. Success in Formula One isn't just about having good people in important positions. It's about having the right people who understand your specific organization, your history, your culture, and your long-term goals. When you remove someone who embodied all of that institutional knowledge, you're taking a bigger risk than the immediate results might suggest. Time will indeed tell if Red Bull made the right decision, just as Vettel suggested. But his warning serves as a reminder that in Formula One, as in any complex organization, the most important consequences of major decisions often don't become apparent until much later. And by then, it might be too late to course correct without paying a significant price. What if I told you that Formula One's biggest star was secretly scouting talent behind the scenes, spotting future champions before anyone else even knew their names? Well, that's exactly what Max Verstappen has been doing, and the story I'm about to tell you reveals how the reigning world champion became an unlikely talent scout who might have just predicted the next big thing in Formula One. Picture this scenario. You're the most dominant driver in the world, you've got multiple championships under your belt, and you're racing for the most successful team on the grid. What do you do in your spare time? Most drivers would be focused solely on their own careers, their own performances, their own legacies. But Max Verstappen, he's out there playing sim racing games, building genuine friendships with up-and-coming drivers, and apparently giving his team management advice about who they should be keeping tabs on for the future. This isn't just some casual gaming session we're talking about here. This is about how virtual racing became the breeding ground for real Formula One relationships, and how one conversation between friends might have just changed the trajectory of a promising young driver's entire career. The driver in question, Gabriel Bortoleto, a name that might not have been on your radar a year ago, but trust me, it should be now. Let me paint you the picture of how unlikely this whole story really is. Bortoleto wasn't even guaranteed a seat in Formula One. Despite winning the Formula 2 championship, which is supposed to be your golden ticket to the big leagues, he found himself in a peculiar position. He was part of McLaren's driver academy, but with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri firmly planted in those McLaren seats for the foreseeable future, his path to Formula One seemed completely blocked. It's like being the understudy to two actors who never get sick and never take vacation days. So what happens next? Most drivers in that situation might panic, might start looking for any available seat, might compromise on their dreams. But Bortoleto made a strategic move that's looking more and more brilliant by the day. He switched to Sauber, partnering with veteran Nico Hülkenberg, and suddenly his Formula One dream became reality. But here's where the story gets really interesting, because apparently Max Verstappen saw this coming from miles away. Now, here's where Verstappen's role in this whole saga becomes absolutely fascinating. During a recent appearance on the Pelas Pistas podcast, the Red Bull driver revealed something that nobody saw coming. He admitted that he had actually recommended Bortoleto to his own team management before the Brazilian rookie even secured his Formula One seat. Can you imagine that conversation? The world champion essentially telling Red Bull's decision makers, "Hey, you need to pay attention to this kid I race against online." The exact words Verstappen used were, "I already said to the team before you even got to Formula One, keep an eye on Gabi." Think about the weight of that statement for a moment. This isn't some casual observation from a fellow driver. This is Max Verstappen, the guy who's beaten everyone on the grid, telling his team that there's someone special coming up through the ranks. When the most successful driver of his generation gives you that kind of endorsement, people listen. But what makes this story even more compelling is how this relationship between Verstappen and Bortoleto actually developed. It wasn't through traditional racing circles, it wasn't at some fancy Formula One event, and it wasn't through team politics or paddock networking. It happened through sim racing, of all things. While the rest of the world sees sim racing as just advanced gaming, these guys were building genuine professional relationships and evaluating each other's talents in a completely virtual environment. Think about how revolutionary that concept really is. We're living in an era where the future of motorsport is being shaped not just by what happens on real race tracks, but by what happens in simulators and online racing platforms. Verstappen wasn't just playing games with Bortoleto, he was essentially conducting an extended job interview without either of them really realizing it at the time. Now, fast forward to today, and Verstappen's early assessment is looking pretty prophetic. Bortoleto has emerged as one of the most promising rookies of the current season, consistently showing the kind of pace and racecraft that suggests he belongs at the highest level of motorsport. His performances with Sauber haven't just been impressive for a newcomer. They've been the kind of displays that make seasoned observers sit up and take notice. When asked about whether Bortoleto could potentially partner him at Red Bull in the future, Verstappen's response revealed both his uncertainty about his own future and his confidence in his friend's potential. He admitted that he doesn't even know how long he'll continue racing himself, with his contract running until 2028 but nothing beyond that set in stone. But more importantly, he expressed his genuine hope that Bortoleto would find himself at a competitive team within the next 3 to 4 years. This isn't just polite encouragement between colleagues. This is Max Verstappen, a driver who's notoriously honest about driver performances and abilities, essentially predicting that Bortoleto will be fighting for podiums and race wins in the near future. Coming from someone who's achieved everything there is to achieve in Formula One, that's not just an endorsement, that's practically a guarantee. What makes this friendship even more remarkable is how it challenges our assumptions about competition at the highest levels of motorsport. Here you have the most successful driver on the grid, actively promoting and supporting someone who could potentially become his rival. Verstappen made it clear that this kind of relationship is possible because, as he put it, healthy competition exists alongside genuine friendship when the personalities are right. The psychological aspect of this relationship is fascinating to consider. Most elite athletes are so focused on their own success that they rarely have the bandwidth to genuinely support potential competitors. But Verstappen seems to operate differently. Maybe it's his confidence in his own abilities. Maybe it's his genuine appreciation for talent wherever he finds it. Or maybe it's just the fact that he enjoys having worthy opponents to race against. This story also highlights something we don't often talk about in Formula One, which is how drivers actually spot and evaluate talent in each other. We're so used to hearing about team scouts and data analysts identifying promising drivers, but here we have peer-to-peer recognition happening in real time. Verstappen wasn't looking at lap times or technical data when he recommended Bortoleto to Red Bull. He was evaluating racecraft, decision-making, and that intangible quality that separates good drivers from great ones. Looking ahead, this relationship between Verstappen and Bortoleto could reshape how we think about driver development and team building in Formula One. If Verstappen's prediction comes true and Bortoleto does find himself at a top team within the next few years, it would validate this new model of talent identification through virtual racing and peer recommendation. The implications extend far beyond just these two drivers. We might be witnessing the emergence of a new generation of Formula One stars who are as comfortable building relationships in virtual environments as they are on actual racetracks. The traditional pathways to Formula One success are evolving, and stories like this one suggest that the future of the sport might be more collaborative and interconnected than we ever imagined. So the next time you see Max Verstappen dominating a race weekend, remember that he's not just focused on his own success. He's out there, identifying the next generation of champions, building genuine friendships across team boundaries, and essentially serving as an unofficial talent scout for the entire sport. In a world where Formula One can sometimes feel cutthroat and purely competitive, this story reminds us that great drivers recognize greatness in others, and sometimes the most powerful endorsement comes not from team bosses or media experts, but from the champions themselves. Could Red Bull be about to make their boldest driver move yet? While everyone's talking about who will partner Max Verstappen in 2026, there's one name that keeps surfacing in the paddock whispers. Isack Hadjar, the French sensation who's been turning heads all season, might just be the dark horse that nobody saw coming. But here's the twist that nobody's talking about. His reaction to all the speculation reveals something fascinating about how Red Bull really operates behind closed doors. Picture this scenario. You're a rising star in Formula One's most successful team, your phone's buzzing with journalists asking about your future, and social media is going crazy with rumors about you potentially becoming teammates with the four-time world champion. How would you handle that pressure? Most drivers would either get overwhelmed or start making bold public statements, but Hadjar's response tells us everything we need to know about his championship mindset. When pressed about the constant speculation surrounding his future, the 20-year-old French driver delivered a masterclass in mental toughness. His answer wasn't what you'd expect from someone potentially on the verge of the biggest break of their career. Instead of excitement or anxiety, he showed something much more valuable: complete composure under pressure. The young driver revealed that uncertainty has been his constant companion throughout his entire journey with Red Bull. Think about that for a moment. While other teams might give their prospects clear roadmaps and guaranteed progression paths, Red Bull operates differently. They've built their driver development program on a philosophy that might seem harsh, but has produced champions like Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen. Hadjar explained that he's never received a contract announcement before the final races of any season throughout his entire career. That's not coincidence, that's strategy. Red Bull deliberately keeps their drivers hungry, motivated, and performing at their absolute peak right until the checkered flag falls on the final race. It's psychological warfare, but it works. This approach reveals something profound about what separates Red Bull from other teams. While competitors might coddle their talent with early contract extensions and public backing, Red Bull forces their drivers to prove themselves repeatedly. Every single session, every qualifying lap, every race becomes a job interview. The pressure never stops, and that's exactly how they like it. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Hadjar's calm acceptance of this uncertainty suggests he's already thinking like a champion. Champions don't need external validation or guaranteed futures to perform. They thrive on proving doubters wrong and rising to challenges when the stakes are highest. His response shows he's internalized the Red Bull mentality completely. The timing of these rumors couldn't be more crucial. With massive regulation changes coming in 2026, Formula One is about to experience its biggest shakeup in decades. New power unit regulations, completely redesigned chassis rules, and even smaller cars and tires mean that every driver will essentially be starting from scratch. Experience advantages could disappear overnight when the technical playing field gets leveled. Hadjar acknowledged this reality with remarkable maturity. He admitted that staying with familiar equipment would make any transition easier, but he also recognized that the 2026 changes will challenge even the most experienced drivers on the grid. This level of realistic assessment shows strategic thinking beyond his years. The French driver made a crucial distinction that reveals his deep understanding of the sport. He pointed out that while the technical challenges of 2026 will be enormous for everyone, his experience within the Formula One environment over the past year has prepared him for the human side of the sport. Working with engineers, understanding data, managing media obligations, and handling the intense pressure of Grand Prix weekends, these skills transfer regardless of technical regulations. This insight demonstrates why Red Bull might be seriously considering promoting him. They're not just looking at raw speed or potential, they're evaluating complete packages. Drivers who can adapt, learn quickly, and maintain performance under pressure become invaluable when the entire sport undergoes revolutionary changes. The competitive landscape for Red Bull's second seat creates fascinating dynamics. With Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda, and even rising star Arvid Lindblad all in contention, Red Bull has an embarrassment of riches in their driver program. But Hadjar's composed handling of the speculation might be setting him apart from the competition. Consider the broader implications of Red Bull's decision-making process. They're not just filling a seat for 2026, they're potentially choosing Max Verstappen's long-term teammate for the next era of Formula One. The driver they select needs to complement Verstappen's aggressive style while being capable of winning races when opportunities arise. Hadjar's performance alongside Liam Lawson at Interlagos, where they secured a double points finish, provided a glimpse of his racecraft under pressure. But more importantly, his professional approach to handling media speculation shows emotional maturity that's essential for operating at Formula One's highest levels. The psychological aspect of Red Bull's selection process cannot be understated. They're evaluating how candidates respond to pressure, uncertainty, and public scrutiny. Hadjar's calm professionalism during this speculation period might be the most important audition of his career, even if he doesn't realize it. The French connection could also play a strategic role, with Formula One's global expansion continuing and French interest in the sport remaining strong. Having a French driver in a top team makes commercial sense. But Red Bull has never prioritized nationality over performance, so this would only be a bonus factor. Looking ahead to the final races of the season, every session becomes crucial for the drivers vying for Red Bull seats. But Hadjar's approach suggests he understands that consistency and professionalism might matter more than occasional brilliance. His steady accumulation of experience and points could be building the strongest case of all. The uncertainty that defines Red Bull's driver program might seem cruel from the outside, but it creates a unique environment where only the strongest mentalities survive and thrive. Hadjar's acceptance of this system suggests he possesses the psychological tools necessary for championship-level success. As the season reaches its climax and Red Bull prepares to make their crucial decision, one thing becomes clear. They're not just evaluating driving ability. They're looking for someone who can handle the pressure, adapt to changes, and complement their existing superstar. Hadjar's composed response to the speculation might just be the quality that sets him apart in this high-stakes game of musical chairs. What if I told you that Formula One's biggest chess match is happening right now, and it doesn't involve Red Bull, Ferrari, or Mercedes? Picture this: a brand new team, backed by one of Germany's automotive giants, publicly declaring they want to steal the world's best driver from under everyone's noses. That team is Audi, and their target is Max Verstappen. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're diving into one of the most audacious moves in modern Formula One, and trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why this could completely reshape the championship landscape for years to come. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because this story has layers that most people are completely missing. Let's start with what actually happened. Jonathan Wheatley, Audi's team principal, did something that most bosses would keep behind closed doors. At an event in Munich, he looked straight into the cameras and said he wants Max Verstappen driving for Audi. Not hinted at it, not played coy about it, but straight up admitted it. Now, you might think that's just typical team principal bluster, but when you dig deeper into this story, there's so much more going on. First, let's talk about timing. Audi isn't even officially in Formula One yet. They're taking over the Sauber operation for the 2026 season, which means they're making bold declarations about a driver who's currently dominating the sport while they're still figuring out how to build a competitive car. That takes some serious confidence, or maybe it's something else entirely. But here's where it gets really interesting. Wheatley isn't just some random team principal throwing around big names for publicity. This guy has history with Max Verstappen that goes way back. He's been friends with Max, his father Jos, and his manager Raymond for years. That's not just professional relationships we're talking about. That's genuine personal connections built on trust and honesty. Think about what that means for a second. While other teams are trying to wine and dine Verstappen with fancy presentations and promises, Audi already has someone on the inside who knows exactly what makes Max tick. Wheatley even said that these friendships develop because you're always honest and never betray trust. In a sport where politics and backstabbing are practically traditions, that kind of relationship is worth its weight in gold. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Wheatley himself admitted that right now, Audi isn't a convincing enough option for someone like Verstappen. The current Sauber team is sitting in ninth place in the Constructors' Championship, which is pretty much as far from championship contention as you can get while still being in Formula One. So why make this public declaration now? This is where the psychology gets fascinating. By openly stating their intentions, Audi is doing several things simultaneously. They're planting seeds in Verstappen's mind about what could be possible in the future. They're signaling to the entire paddock that they're serious about competing at the highest level. And most importantly, they're starting the conversation early, before other teams even realize they should be worried about Audi as a threat. Let's talk about what Audi is actually promising here. Wheatley laid out their ambitious timeline, and it's pretty breathtaking when you think about it. They want to be fighting with McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull. Those are teams that have been in Formula One for decades, with some having won multiple championships and employing thousands of the best engineers in motorsport. But here's the kicker that everyone's missing. Audi isn't just talking about being competitive. They're setting a target to fight for the championship by 2030. That's not just ambitious, that's borderline crazy, except for one thing. Audi has the resources to actually pull it off. We're talking about a company that's part of the Volkswagen Group, one of the largest automotive manufacturers in the world. When Wheatley talks about tremendous investment, he's not exaggerating. This brings us to the real question that's keeping other team principals awake at night. What happens when a company with essentially unlimited resources decides they want to dominate Formula One? We've seen what happened when manufacturers like Toyota came in with massive budgets and failed spectacularly. But we've also seen what Mercedes did when they got serious about winning. The difference is going to be in the execution. Here's where Wheatley's comments reveal something crucial about Audi's strategy. He talked about having equally talented people ready to step in if someone misses a race. That might sound like basic team management, but it's actually a huge tell about how they're thinking about this project. They're not just trying to hire a few star engineers and hope for the best. They're building depth throughout the entire organization. Now let's get back to Max Verstappen and why this matters so much. Right now, Max is undoubtedly the best driver on the grid. He's won multiple championships, he's still young, and he's showing no signs of slowing down. Every team principal in Formula One would love to have him, but most of them know it's just wishful thinking. Red Bull has Max locked up with a contract, and they've built their entire operation around him. Mercedes would love to replace Lewis Hamilton with someone younger when the time comes. Ferrari is always Ferrari, thinking they can convince any driver to wear red. But all of these teams have one thing in common. They're trying to convince Max to leave a winning situation for another winning situation. Audi is playing a completely different game. They're not trying to convince Max to leave Red Bull right now. They're positioning themselves for the future, for when Max might be ready for a new challenge, or when Red Bull's dominance might start to fade. It's long-term thinking in a sport that's usually obsessed with the next race weekend. But there's another layer to this that's absolutely brilliant. By making this public declaration now, Audi is also sending a message to every other driver on the grid. They're saying that they're not just planning to be another midfield team happy to score points occasionally. They want to win championships, and they want the best driver in the world to do it with them. This creates a ripple effect throughout the entire driver market. Young drivers who might be considering their options are now thinking about what opportunities might exist at Audi. Current drivers who are stuck in uncompetitive cars are wondering if Audi might be their ticket to race wins. And established stars are having to consider whether Audi might represent the future of the sport. The timing of this announcement is also crucial when you consider the broader context of Formula One right now. The sport is going through massive changes with new regulations, new teams potentially joining, and a shift toward more sustainable technologies. Audi represents everything that Formula One is trying to become, a premium automotive brand using racing to develop and showcase advanced technology. Here's something that most people are overlooking in all of this. Wheatley mentioned that Audi's goal is aggressive but achievable. That's not just motivational speak. When you look at what Audi has accomplished in other forms of motorsport, from Le Mans to Formula E, they know how to win. They understand the commitment required, and they're willing to make it. The question isn't whether Audi will be competitive when they join Formula One. The question is how quickly they can get there, and whether they can convince Max Verstappen to be part of that journey. Right now, the answer is probably no. Max is comfortable at Red Bull. He's winning races and championships, and there's no reason for him to take a risk on an unproven team. But Formula One is unpredictable. Teams rise and fall, regulations change, and opportunities present themselves when you least expect them. By starting this conversation now, Audi is ensuring that when that opportunity does arise, they'll be first in line. What's really fascinating about all of this is how it reflects the changing nature of Formula One itself. We're entering an era where manufacturers are becoming increasingly important, where sustainability and road car relevance matter more than ever, and where the biggest budgets don't automatically guarantee success. Audi represents all of these trends. They're a premium manufacturer with a strong commitment to electric and hybrid technology. They have the resources to compete at the highest level, but they also understand that success in Formula One requires more than just money. It requires the right people, the right strategy, and the right timing. So where does this leave Max Verstappen? Right now, probably amused by all the attention but focused on winning more races with Red Bull. But in the back of his mind, he's got to be intrigued by what Audi is planning. The idea of being part of something new, of helping build a championship-winning team from the ground up, that's got to be appealing to someone who's already achieved so much. The real brilliance of Wheatley's strategy is that he's not putting pressure on Max to make a decision now. He's simply letting him know that when the time is right, Audi will be there with a competitive offer. That's exactly the kind of long-term thinking that wins championships. Here's my prediction for how this all plays out. Audi will join Formula One in 2026 and probably struggle for the first couple of years, just like most new teams do. But by 2028 or 2029, they'll start to become competitive. And when that happens, if Max Verstappen is looking for a new challenge, Audi will be perfectly positioned to make him an offer he can't refuse. The fact that Jonathan Wheatley is being so open about wanting Max Verstappen isn't just bold, it's strategic. He's planting seeds that might not bloom for years, but when they do, they could completely change the balance of power in Formula One. And honestly, that's exactly the kind of long-term thinking that this sport needs more of. What do you think? Is Audi dreaming too big, or are they about to shake up Formula One in ways we can't even imagine yet? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed for more Formula One analysis, and I'll see you in the next video.